for Britt. He's giving his presentation. Feel free to utilize the Q&A feature. That'll be the best way to put questions in here, and we will get to them during the presentation. Likely towards the end will be the best way of doing that.
What time did you guys start today?
It was, what was it, 3 o'clock was our first session today. Was that right, Tariq? Yep, okay. Yeah, 3 o'clock was, yeah. So this one, and then I believe one more session after this. So, well, we can go ahead and get started then. And I think we have enough people have joined. I know more will be joining us. So I will go ahead and get this kicked off for our group here. So I appreciate everyone joining. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Ryan Collette, Chief Development Officer for the PIKE Foundation, the fundraising arm of Phi Kappa Alpha. As you know, PIKE University is the fraternity's premier leadership training platform that not only strengthens the leadership in our chapters, but helps build the next generation of men who will better their communities. The PIKE Foundation sponsors this segment of the conference, the Leadership Lecture Series, where we ask prominent alumni to spend time with you, sharing their story and the impact Phi Kappa Alpha had on their lives, so that you can learn from their experience and use their practices to enhance your own life. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Britt Massing. Professionally, he is a president and co-owner of SRG, the Staffing Resource Group. SRG is a full-service contract staffing, direct placement, and government subcontracting services firm. He is responsible for managing the daily operations and integration for the vision of the company, as well as managing the executive team. In the fraternity, Britt was initiated in 1989 at the Eta Phi chapter at the University of Central Florida. He served the chapter as vice president, along with terms as new member educator, risk management chair, community service chair, leadership chair, and public relations chair. On campus, he was president of the IFC and vice president of the Alcohol Task Force. In 1991, he was recognized with Eta Phi's Brother of the Year award. Upon graduation, he worked for the PIKE headquarters as a chapter consultant and started the PIKE colony at University of Pacific. Britt resides in Tampa and is married to his wife, Kathy, an attorney, and they have 2 sons, Parker and Decker. Britt is also active in the community and believes in giving back. He serves as an advisory board member for Elevate, on the alumni board of directors for the UCF Foundation, UCF Burnett Honors College Dean's advisory board member, Cub Scout Den leader for PAC 19, an active member of the Hyde Park United Methodist Church, and he continues to serve the fraternity as the Eta Phi Central Florida Alumni Association Vice President. In 2018, Britt and Kathy created the Massing Family Collegiate Recovery Endowment at UCF to help students affected by addiction. Britt is a shining example of a successful alum who took his skills to excel in his profession and has bettered our world. I hope you all are as excited for his discussion as I am. Once again, during the presentation, if you have any questions or to interact, use the Q&A feature. Feel free to ask questions along the way so we can have them teed up for Britt at the end. Brothers, please join me in welcoming our brother and today's leadership lecturer, Britt Massing.
Thanks, Ryan. I truly appreciate it. It's great to be here. Wow, this is a completely different world than a few years back when I did a talk in Atlanta, but that's some of what we're going to talk about today. So when I was approached about things that they wanted me to talk about for this talk, you know, getting a job in today's world, as well as mental health, were 2 aspects that they wanted to cover today. So I'm going to cover both of those. And first off, we're going to talk about some ideas on kind of how the world's changed. Then we're going to go into some strategies for landing a job in our new virtual world. Then we're going to talk about being the best version of you, and we'll go to question and answers at the end after that. But How has the world changed? It's amazing. I don't know how many people saw the picture of the India Gate. They did a before and after of in October, like 100 yards away from the India Gate, you could barely see it. And in April, the air was completely, crystal clear and clean. So that was a change for a positive there. On the negative side, though, right before COVID, unemployment was below 4%. Right after COVID, it was 14 to 25, depending on the sources and what was going on. Also, in the pre-COVID work environment, right now I'm sitting in our Tampa office here. Usually there's 35 plus people in here still at this time of day. I was the only person in here this afternoon because we've gone from a work from home environment. Back in June, we tried to open the office back up, and as soon as somebody would sneeze or cough, everybody would just kind of like walk away. Like we were like, wow, this is, things are just so different, and the processes and everything. So we went back to being completely remote. Everything's been trial and error. So because of that, I think before we get into my kind of 7 habits for a successful job search, I want to talk about the quote that I have for life that I use all the time. And it's, at this very moment, everything's exactly as it should be. It can't be any different. What you do about it from this moment forward is what counts. And that's really what helps define you. So kind of the acceptance, right, is that you're going to be getting a job in a COVID world. How you look for a job, how you interview, how you onboard, and how you start a new job has changed. And just like I like to do talks like this where I'm in the room with people, where I can walk around, where I can, shake hands and make eye contact and do all these different things. But I can't do that right now, right? So adapting and accepting the fact of, how we have to do things is the way to do it. So in regards to your job search, I have 7 steps that if you follow, are certainly going to help alleviate some of the main mistakes for you on your job search. Rule number 1 is the most important rule, and probably the one that people many times are the most likely to not follow to a T. But with discipline, rule number 1 is discipline. In your job search, it's got to be a full-time job. There's a lot of competition in the market right now. The market itself has changed. How we're doing business has changed. So really, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. By the time you start at 8, you need to be showered, dressed, ready to go for success for the day. Be sure to take a lunch break just like you would. You can grab a workout, you can get a walk in, go outside, do something to change it up, and then be back. Also in your workspace while you're searching, really try and alleviate all the distractions that you can, because you really want to focus your time on all the activities that you need to do to land your dream job. And then make sure that after you've got rid of the distractions, that you have a nice work environment set up so that you can do your search as best as possible. Rule number 2 is, in this job market, we have to be aggressive. We have to cast a really wide net. So what I mean by that is, you're going to want to use job boards like a Career Builder and a Monster and Clearance Jobs and Dice and all these different things. You're also going to want to research the companies that you're interested in, and you're going to want to apply directly to those positions, as well as, you're going to want to use recruitment firms. And there are plenty of great recruitment firms depending on what position you're going after, if it's engineering, if it's science, accounting and finance, whatever. You can do the search and come up with a list and a link of those firms that you're going to do. Also, use LinkedIn. Make sure that you have a LinkedIn presence. Make sure that you are constantly asking to connect to people in your network, and you really have to leverage your network. So, start with the people closest to you, ask them for help, and then continue to build out your network from there, with having more and more people be able to join your network to help you out on where you're headed for your call. Rule number 3 is another important rule. You really have to look at yourself. Review your entire online profile. Do a Google search on your name, see what comes up, and because we get lots of phone calls where, clients, they're going to research you. They're going to take a look at your web-based searches. They're going to review all of your social media platforms. They're going to look at the images that you're tagged in. And you just need to make sure that I know that I have some pictures that are out there from back in the days in college that, if I was going through now and doing my job search, I would want to make sure that, all that was cleaned up. So as you're making that transition from the college world to the outside world, just know that, those types of searches employers might do. So just go ahead, run that search, see what's out there for you and on you, and then, address everything accordingly. Rule number 4 is honesty. Do not lie. Companies are going to conduct at a minimum a drug screen and a background check. Some companies, depending on the role, if you're going to be in a financial role, dealing with insurance, things of that nature, they're also going to run a credit check. Don't provide any false information. And we see this in our company all the time. People will provide information and it's just not accurate. And when it goes to be checked and it doesn't line up, that automatically kicks you out of the job search at that point in time. And also really make sure that you disclose. Sometimes clients don't care so much about what you've done. They care more about if you're trying to hide it. So when you're filling out that application there that maybe you don't want to answer 100%, be sure to go ahead, put down the honest scenario situation and get it out there. We've had people go all the way through, get hired, and then something minor comes up on their background check, like a misdemeanor, and they didn't mention it, and it asked to, include that on there. If not, then they, a lot of times, are not going to be able to start in that job because they are going to be ruled out. So, if you did disclose, you're certainly going to be, much better off. And it's not going to waste your time and it's not going to waste their time. So definitely make sure that you're leading with the honesty part there and answering everything that way. Rule number 5 is professionalism, and especially at networking events, whether virtual networking events or in person. Make sure that you're dressing for the role, including, for online, do the same thing. And remember, like, you're there to work on trying to land a job. So you want to talk to as many people as possible. When you're doing it, you want to ask open-ended questions. You always want them to talk more than you're talking. Always be polite and completely sincere. And be sure to get a business card, or if it's virtual, that you're getting a V card from them. And then when you get home from the event or the event's over, that's not the time to shut the computer off. That's the time to really take a few moments, the people that you want to reach back out to, get that done ASAP versus the next day or the day after. I found many times I forget things. Or I, will mix somebody up with one conversation versus another. So once I learned to really be kind of militant about doing that right afterwards, I started making a lot fewer mistakes and things started going better. Rule number 6, when it comes to getting the interview, whether it's by phone, in person, or on Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever it is, you got to be prepared. So have a complete outfit on. Even if it's on Zoom, make sure that you're not just dressed from the waist up. Make sure that you are dressed completely. Be sure to research the company and go that extra step and research the people who you're going to be interviewing with. There's so much free information that you can get from doing Google searches, doing searches on the company website. Make sure that you have your questions ready that you want to ask. And be sure on the first interview not to ask about salary. Also, if you're interviewing in person, make sure that you have a nice leather folio or, something that doesn't have, big giant colorful emblem all over it or something, and a nice pen. And be sure to turn off your phone. You would be amazed. We probably have 20 or 30 people a year not move on to the next round because after they interview, our recruiters will ask the manager, how did the interview go? And they'll mention that they got a phone call and they answered it while in the interview, which seems kind of crazy, but definitely just make sure before you go in, you turn your phone off. And if for some reason you're waiting on a call, say a relative is sick or something, just mention it up front so that that's out of the way. Say, hey, so-and-so's in the hospital. If I get a phone call, I apologize, but I'm going to have to take it. Just lead with that up front and you'll be much better off. And finally, rule number 7 is something that we're all good at as members of Pi Kappa Alpha, and that's courtesy. Make sure that you nail your post-interview follow-up. You can do email thank yous, but also if you want to separate yourself from the others out there, get thank you cards. They're not expensive, and do handwritten notes. If you're interviewing in person, one of the best ways to really differentiate yourself from everyone else is after the interview, when you get in your car, take your thank you note and your folio and write the thank you notes for everybody that you met with, and then go back in and hand them to the person up front. We call them the gatekeepers. Excuse me, hand those thank you cards to them before you drive off. That is one little thing that will certainly help you with prompt feedback, and it's also going to help set yourself apart from everybody else. Excuse me. Also, be sure to meet all the required deadlines. If anything that they're asking you for, be sure to get that done. Remember to be early, as on time is late, and be grateful and sincere, excuse me, through the entire process. Also, a lot of people ask about salary, and I tell them, excuse me again, that don't worry about what the starting salary is. Obviously, you want to make enough to live, but at the end of the day, your starting salary is not going to be your ending salary. Excuse me. So that is a quick little intro there. So now that you've landed your dream job, let's make sure you're ready to be the best version of you, right? So eating right, exercise, getting rest, all those things are good. And it's all things that we need to do. One of the elephants in the room a lot of times is mental health. and mental health and addiction, a lot of times it's things that it's not comfortable to talk about, and we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to think about it. But I will give you all a disclaimer that when I did this talk a few years ago, some of the feedback was they felt like some of the members felt like I was saying that, like I was blaming them or saying that, you know, this is who they are and what they were doing. And I'm not saying that by any means. What I'm going to do today is share part of my story and some facts and figures. If something resonates for you, if something resonates for a family member, one of your brothers in the chapter, that's what this is all for. So in regards to addiction and substance abuse, we're going to talk about really kind of what is it, right? Why we all should care about it as members of PIKE and for our brothers. Why am I specifically talking about it today? What to look for and what can I do about it? So in 1956, the American Medical Association classified alcoholism addiction as a disease because it said it's chronic, it's progressive, and there is no cure. And left untreated, it is fatal. So while we're going through this talk, I want everybody to think about, you know, when you were a kid, dreaming about what you were going to do when you grow up, right? Whether it was an astronaut, a fireman, whether you're going to run a hedge fund or, you know, be an engineer. Did anybody think about, when I grow up, I want to be an alcoholic, right? Do I want to be an addict? So the reason why I asked that question is the National Institute of Health estimates that addiction affects over 14% of the population. So, you know, for every 100, you know, members, you're looking at least 14 people who mentally and physically have the predisposition of addiction. So, you know, it's not something that is, you know, only one or two people here or there. It really is very prevalent. And because it's so prevalent, you know, there's no shame in it. There's no shame in doing something about it. Really, I think, and as you'll hear about what my path was, a lot of the shame that I experienced was by not doing something about it for so long. So here's some neat facts and figures again from the NIH on binge drinking. I found this for me interesting because I blew all of these things out of the water, but they said binge drinking is 5 or more drinks in 2 hours for men and 4 or more drinks in 2 hours for women. Then the next step was heavy alcohol use. They said that binge drinking on 5 or more days in the past month was heavy alcohol use or alcohol use disorder. You know, they also said that alcohol accounts for at least 31% of the driving fatalities, and that 10% of the U.S. kids in the United States live with a parent with, you know, alcohol or addiction in the house. So how do you identify it, right? Whether you're thinking, you know, I wonder if that's me, or I wonder if that's a friend of mine or a family member. You know, some of the common signs, and these are all things that I did. I drank daily. I would drink until I got sick. I would black out. I would need to drink even when I didn't want to because of the physical and mental dependence of everything. And I would continue to drink despite knowing that there were going to be consequences that would be, you know, coming for drinking. I just blew through all of those. So why should we all kind of, you know, why should we all care about it, right? According to a Harvard study, 4 out of 5 fraternity and sorority members are binge drinkers in comparison to 2 out of 5 for the rest of the non-Greek college population. And 83% of Greek housing residents report having suffered as a result of their members' alcohol consumption. I thought that was high, but for college students, they say 1,825 students die a year. 696,000 students are assaulted by another student who's been drinking a year. 97,000 students report experiencing alcohol-related sexual assault or date rape, and 25% of college students report academic consequences from drinking. So, in reviewing those, kind of the questions come to mind of, did I come to college to go to jail? Did anyone come to college to die? Or did anybody come to college to end up in an institution? No, I came to college to have fun, and I came to college to have fun and kind of get an education. But, there's also can be consequences for the chapter, right? Greek life right now, we are under a microscope. Actions of a few can lose a chapter. And, as of late, the last few years, we've seen the actions of a few not only lose a chapter, but institutions are shutting down the entire Greek systems for things that a few people did. So, it's not something that we always think about, but it's certainly something that should be in the back of our minds, as well as, now people are being charged criminally for, events that are happening. And I'm pretty sure that, a lot of the hazing events that might happen at a chapter house, different things, are going to have those criminal charges attached to them. So certainly something to look out for. So why am I here talking about this? I'm going to talk about two periods. I'm going to talk about my time in college and some of the things that happened. And I'm going to talk about another part of my life. But my college days, my nickname was PCA. When I was a pledge and pledged, I was a first semester freshman, and there were 55 guys in my pledge class. And I was the PCA, as they called me, which stood for Pledge Class Alcoholic. And I certainly earned that title. I remember my first semester, the month of October, I think I went like 28 days in a row where I drank so much that I threw up. But I was drinking, every single day. And, it was, excuse me, it was a fun time, but I knew that I was taking it to excess. And people would tell me all the time, hey, listen, you might want to slow down. So how did I combat that? I didn't slow down. I got really involved on campus, and I got really involved in the chapter, because in my mind, if I was active on campus, then I'm not an alcoholic, right? It was a joke in the house. I became the IFC vice president in charge of alcohol task force. And in the, excuse me, in the weekly newsletter, they mentioned, Britt Massing, an alcoholic himself, becomes vice president of alcohol task force. And, I see all these things looking back, and it's like, wow, why did I, not connect the dots? And then even, events where, I would be like, gee, you might be an alcoholic if, right? Kind of the Jeff Foxworthy thing where, you might be an alcoholic if you're running to the bathroom to throw up and you projectile vomit in front of you and your feet slide out from underneath and you land and hurt your tailbone, you might be an alcoholic. Well, that was one of the things that I did. If you completely black out, get home and don't remember where your car's parked, or you look out the window to see if if your car was there, and if you did see it there, trying to figure out if I drove or somebody else drove me home. And then, at the end of my college career, I was trying to think about, what would be next for me, right? What was my job going to be? So being involved on campus and being involved with the fraternity, I really wanted to work for nationals. I thought that, it was going to be a great job for me. And it was. I loved my experience there. One of the things that happened while I had that job was on the weekends, I couldn't be at the chapter house. On the weekends, I was on the road for 6 weeks at a time. And, it was me isolated in a hotel room for the weekend. And that's when I really started to drink alone and by myself, because I didn't have everybody around me. So, now I was not necessarily so much a social drinker anymore in my mind. Like I started to think, well, maybe things aren't as good as they could be. So I started drinking alone during that time. Then after college, for years, everything that I did revolved around drinking. The jobs that I took were all with companies full of young people. We all like to go out every night. Also, I still continued to make sure that I ran with friends who liked to drink the way that I did, so that I wouldn't feel so bad about myself, so that I would feel like, okay, this is natural, everybody's doing it. But after a while, they started calling me Houdini because I would always disappear. We'd be out having a great time, and I always had to leave. I would just walk out, leave, get a cab or a taxi or whatever, because I needed to isolate and drink more at a higher level, right? That I just didn't want to do with people around me, having to answer any questions or having people, see what was going on. So, the next morning they'd be like, Houdini, where'd you go? You disappeared. You left us that night. And, I'd just be like, well, I went home, I fell asleep. I just wanted to sleep it off. But really it was what alcohol wanted. Alcohol wanted to have it just be me and a bottle. And I was more than happy to oblige at that point in time. As I was going through all this, I drank so much over the years that I gave myself anxiety, to the point where even simple things like my wife would call and say, can you, on the way home from work, can you go into the grocery store and, pick up some milk? I didn't want to do it because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just knew that if I went in there, I just felt like I was going to have a heart attack. Or even something as simple as like going to get a haircut. Everything, my world was just getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I didn't know what to do about it. So, because there were plenty of myths that kept me in addiction for a long time. That I didn't live under a bridge. I have a wife, I have 2 kids. I have these things like a house and a car, and we go on vacation. I own a business. And, the last one I would always say, well, I've never been arrested, right? If I was an alcoholic, I certainly would have been arrested. I don't know how I never was, but I was not, but I certainly should have. But those were all things that I kept saying to myself, you know, are not bad. So fast forward to like my last 9 months leading up to treatment, there was an event where it was a Friday after Thanksgiving, and my wife and I, with our kids, went over to a friend's house for dinner. Um, and of course, you know, I drank too much. And when we got home, my wife was dealing with one kid, and I was giving a bottle to my youngest son, Decker. He was only like 2 months old at the time, and you know, I'm in the rocker and I'm rocking back and forth, and you know, I'm giving him this bottle, and the next thing that I notice, you know, my wife comes in and she's yanking me up off my son. I had passed out while giving him a bottle. You know, she's screaming, the baby's crying. You know, thank God nothing happened, and he was fine. But you know, it was at that point in time that that we ended up in obviously in marriage counseling, right? And it was the first time, you know, when we met with that counselor, that as she's talking to us and going through things, my wife was like, he's an alcoholic. And I was like, it was the first time I ever heard it, and I was taken aback. Um, so I agreed to see a addiction therapist because, you know, I love my wife, I love my kids. You know, I was willing to do whatever except stop drinking. And you know, my when I went to the addiction person, they said, you know, hey, before you come back, you got to go to an AA meeting. So I went to my first meeting. I was drunk. At the end of the meeting, drunk, I picked up like a 30-day chip because a 1-day chip wasn't going to be good enough for me and my ego. And I just remember coming home, even though I'd been drinking, my wife was just so excited, like, oh, how was it? You know, I'm like, oh, it was great. I realized that AA could be a cover for me to continue drinking longer. And so that's what I did. I would go to meetings. I would go to meetings drunk. People would come up to me after the meetings and be like, listen, it's okay. You can be here, but please, like, just stop sharing about being sober when you're slurring and you're, you know, talking about how great sobriety is, and you're forgetting halfway through a sentence what you were saying. They're like, you can keep coming back, but man, you know, you got to stop sharing. So we were in Palm Springs on a family vacation, and I had been drinking, and you know, I had to either make everything really sad so that I had something to drink at, or something was really good so that we could celebrate it. And it was constant. So I took the rental car to get In-N-Out Burger out in California because we don't have it here in Florida. And I got like $80 worth of In-N-Out Burger for, you know, like 6 people. But it was just me in the car, and I'd been drinking. And I ran the car off the road in Palm Springs. It was an SUV. The car was stuck. I had to call, you know, everybody. At that point in time, everybody realized, because I quote unquote was at a meeting that morning, that I was, you know, continuing to still drink. So needless to say, when we got home, even though, you know, to me, I was the excuse me, the breadwinner of the family, that I was the one that got kicked out of the house. And so I got kicked out for a week. I continued to drink every night, but, you know, continued to tell everyone that I was sober and not drinking. The first night that I got back into the house after that week, I was drunk again. And, you know, on one of the earlier slides, I talked about drinking, even, you know, regardless of consequences. I knew that if I continued to drink, that I was going to lose my wife, my kids, probably my business, that I was going to lose everything. But I was mentally and physically addicted with the disease of alcohol. I could not stop drinking, even though I loved these people, so much. Um, so the next morning when I got out of bed, my wife was downstairs, and I'll never forget this day, because when I got downstairs, my wife looked right at me and she's like, Britt, I'm always gonna love you. You are the love of my life and the father of our children, but you have to move out. And my very first thought when she said that was like, wow, this is awesome. I can get my own place. I can drink as much as I want, and nobody is going to say jack shit to me. I can just be alone, me and the bottle. And right when I got done saying that, thank God, my next thought was, you're going to die. And it wasn't like a, dramatic, you're going to die. It was, I knew in the heart of my soul that I was going to die. So, the choice was move out or go to treatment. And, thank God for me, I agreed to go to treatment. I didn't think that I needed treatment, but then I was told that because of how much I drank and how often and everything, I was told that I needed to go to a medical detox, because quitting cold turkey was going to put me at risk for a seizure. So, if you have to go to medical detox, you might be an alcoholic, right? Back to, you might be an alcoholic if. That was certainly one of them. But, there I ended up, it was me and 3 women on metronome in a medical detox center. And then I was able to, get sober and start moving through my life. So, if any parts of that story resonate with anyone, for someone that whether it's yourself or someone that a family member, whatever, right? What can you do about it, right? I've identified a problem. Now what? Another question would be, can the bonds of brotherhood and accountability work to help somebody stop drinking? Will the problem go away if I ignore it? And the answers to all of those are no. In recovery and treatment, they talk about the 3 C's, where you didn't cause it, you can't control it, and the addiction is chronic. So the substance abuse problems, no matter who it is and what it's for, whether it's in the chapter house or individual or family member, they need to be handled by professionals. You can't treat addiction as a chapter member. None of us are skilled or in it. And brotherhood and friendship, accountability is not going to be enough. I stood at the edge, ready to fall right over, with thought of losing a wife, 2 kids, business, everything. So really, you have to get the professionals involved. So my life now is amazing. I'm coming up on 8 years without a drink, and that's from someone who couldn't go one single day without drinking. And somebody asked me one time, about, they were talking about how a year makes such a difference. So the story that I tell, and this will be a quick one because I want to get to some questions and stuff, but that first night in medical detox, by the time they got me in and they were done medically evaluating me and everything, they brought me this styrofoam container with roast beef in it, and it had like green fat veins running through it. It was disgusting. Fast forward 1 year later, and while I'm eating that dinner, I'm wondering, am I gonna have a wife? Are my kids ever gonna want to see me again? Can I ever actually stop drinking? 1 year later, I'm with my wife, I'm with my kids on a weekend to celebrate 1 year of being sober, eating a steak at a restaurant overlooking the water. The difference between those 2 days still is just, completely gives me goosebumps. And one of the reasons why I wanted to really go into parts of this story is because for people who need help, man, get it sooner versus later. Don't go through so many years of hardship like I did. Um, now that I have my life back, like I said, it's better than ever. I can realize all my goals, all my dreams. And I don't have to worry about jails, institutions, or death anymore, And for people who think like, well, there's only a few of us dealing with this problem. Yeah, I just did a quick look for in Atlanta, because I know this is for the Southeast. In Atlanta, there's 1,200 free help support meetings a week. There's 67,750 groups in the United States and 118,000 groups worldwide. So if you think you might have a problem, or you think somebody has a problem, please get them help. It's one of the reasons why my wife and I chose to do the endowment at UCF, is to, help with the stigma, to get education and supplies to people, and really, learn at an earlier age if you need help. Because, there were plenty of my fraternity brothers that drank a lot, and when it was time for them to, move on with their lives, they were able to. I just wasn't. I just kept the party going, and I kept it going for too long. But that quote back to the beginning of everything's exactly as it should be, because it can't be any different. I can't look back on that. All I can do is focus on what I'm doing today and every day moving forward. So, excuse me, that's all that I have, outside of making sure that you go to pikes.org, health and safety page, also the partnership with JED, the pikeulifeline.org, and my friend Kim Novak. She is amazing. So everybody's in great hands. Thank you so much for allowing me to be of service and to talk about some of my story today. Hope that it was helpful for everybody. Thanks.
Britt, thanks so much for your presentation today. That was excellent, very timely. We really do appreciate it. If anyone has any question and answers, we have a few minutes. So you have some questions, please put that into the chat or the Q&A feature. It is open now. And as I receive those, I'll be providing those to Britt. But yeah, and I think your presentation is extremely timely on multiple reasons, hitting probably two of the biggest topics of today, especially for undergraduates with COVID. The fact that how to get a job, how do we move forward from this experience, and then also the mental health side of it, as all the studies and everything that we're seeing right now is showing that alcohol consumption, mental health problems are a growing and rising issue today due to COVID. I think I saw numbers that alcohol consumption was actually up double digits now due to the social isolations and things that are going on right now. So extremely timely.
We're doing a big mental health kickoff here at the company, because we had a Friday, a Monday, and a Tuesday, where on a Friday, a person with the clearance got arrested for alcohol. On a Monday, we had a consultant in South Carolina who had a parent die from COVID, And on a Tuesday, we had one of our people's 30 some year old daughter commit suicide 3 days in a row. So we are actively doing everything we can. The pandemic has really, put a dent in all of this.
Yeah, that what you're saying there, it's extremely resonates with. I think for all of us to understand that a lot of times as we're going through college, our students are looking at, oh, it's a fun time. I'm just drinking, I'm just partying, having a good time through it. And I think you do such a great job hitting upon the point that those habits that you start in college continue on later in life and can impact you and affect you. And so
It can, especially if you have the predisposition of an addict, right? A good friend of mine, he was also PCA with me. He's the one that I talk about. We were heavy drinkers and partied a lot in college. When it was time to have a wife and kids and family and work, Scott was able to do that. And I was kind of able to do that, but I was still continuing that very dangerous behavior because I was just an addict, so I had to get treatment and I had to get well.
Yeah, I think your experience, one of the things you mentioned, just the fact that you were a high performer, and so it really masked over the alcoholism that you dealt with. And I think that's likely something that probably would impact a great deal of our membership, with the mantra I think a lot of kids have of the work hard, play hard mentality. And we have so many high performers that it could be so easily overmasked. That, oh, they're still functioning, they're still doing things. But I really like your point about the fact that it's we as students is what can our brothers do, and it's we can't solve it, but we can get them help and we can identify it. So I really like those points you made there.
And a lot of the colleges do have a collegiate recovery center, which is a great place to send individuals to get education. We're working at UCF on providing what we call safe sober space for individuals. It's tough, but I have a friend who's senior in college is fighting for his life right now.
Wow. Yeah, as you said, it's no one entered college or grew up thinking I want to be an alcoholic or whatever, and so it's
right.
It's absolutely amazing to think the scariness that it can creep up on you like that.
Yeah.
One of the questions that we had was actually back regarding the professional experience side of things with the getting the jobs. What do you feel for a student coming out of college nowadays? It's an extremely competitive job market now, especially with COVID. Cutbacks in jobs. Everyone, it seems like, has good grades. They have the good academics they're graduating with. What skills would you say are really the main things for them to be focusing on that the fraternity potentially help them out with, whether that's certain soft skills or technical skills? What do you feel would be really good things for them to focus on and help to set themselves aside from the pack?
Absolutely. Work your PIKE network, right? We have a lot of successful alumni. Our undergrads are successful coming out. Work that network. The second part was a number of people recently have gotten the job because at the end of their Zoom, when they talk about their dedication and be willing, they stand up and they show that they're dressed the whole way, right? It's little things like that. And we tell people all the time that tip with the thank you card, if you're interviewing in person, have them in your car, sit there for 5 or 10 minutes, write them all, and bring them back in. Nobody else that you're interviewing against is going to do that. That shows initiative. It shows that you're on top of it, and it shows that you're ready to go. But really the biggest thing, and it's what I started with, and we tell everyone right now, because it is competitive, is you've got to be ready you've got to treat getting a job like a 40-hour-a-week job. You've got to. And if you do that and work your network and do those little things to, make sure that your shoes and your belt match, things of that nature, you're going to set yourself apart, but there's very little room for error.
Excellent, thank you. Once again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put those in the question and answer feature, and we'll try to get those as well too. In terms of interviewing for our brothers that are getting ready to graduate this spring, or for those that are looking at an internship this summer, how early should they start doing that? It's February 12th right now. Graduation's in May, summer starts in May. How soon should they be starting that process?
I would be working on my summer internships now. I would be going in and talking with my professors. I would be talking with the dean of the honor, the dean of the college that I'm in. I would be searching, in Handshake, which is what most of the universities use. I would be very aggressive in regards to doing that. Plus, thankfully for me, my internship that I had in college was through, one of our fraternity brothers, and I show up for the first day, and not only was Scott Bell in there who got me the internship, but there was like 4 or 5 other Pikes from our chapter that were working there, all selling commercial real estate. So, we are at an advantage coming from such a great fraternity like we are here, and the great schools that we're at and the networks that we have. Use them.
Excellent. I had a question here that just came in from one of our brothers, back more along the lines on the drinking side, and he said, when you can tell a chapter member is drinking to forget, what do you suggest doing? Going to professional is not always appealing. How would you go about it, knowing how thin that tightrope is?
Yeah, so that's where the collegiate recovery community at your college comes into play, or even just finding an AA meeting that you can take somebody to and go with them. And you're not saying, hey, listen, I think you're an alcoholic. You're just saying, hey, let's go and listen. Here's some people, here's some stories, and see if it resonates at all with you. And when you go to the Collegiate Recovery Center, it's not administrators, it's students, right? Everything that we're doing at UCF, it's all student-led, and all of the CRCs are. And it's better to walk into the CRC than having to be referred into the CRC from, the dean at the university or from the campus police. And, there are plenty of things online to look at, and PIKE has great resources as well with the commitment that the PIKE has to this nationally. I know professional help is not appealing. It did not appeal to me. I went down swinging. And I can tell you that a lot of young people come to me and they say, I'm too young. I can't imagine being sober now. My response is, you have a gift waiting to be in front of you. I wish that I could have done it back then versus, 25 hard years of it before I got sober. So look for those non-professional resources. There are so many.
Thank you for that. Great point, Britt. And yeah, I definitely agree. Just being there for them, taking them there, and finding the different way that works. So there's a lot of different resources that are out there. So explore the best options. Thank you for that question, Corey. Another one from Brother Walker, asking about, we start to have problems in the chapter. If there's DUI in the chapter, or drinking and driving, what's the best way to handle that? Coming from a sergeant or from the judicial board side of the chapter, how do you punish brothers, or how do you treat that when someone is performing in something that's illegal, or then potentially are even getting arrested or have?
That's a great question, and that is a really complicated question. If you're sick, you go to the doctor, they give you a prescription, you get better. With addiction, people get mad at you. My wife would yell and scream and just be like, why can't you stop? And it's like, I can't. if they get a DUI, they're going to be forced to do some things where they have to go to meetings, go to counseling, they have to do certain things. You know, sometimes more of a hug and you're going to be all right versus you did this, we're going to have to, you know, do A, B, and C to you, is more effective. You never know how much they might be hurting. But, you know, usually when those things are happening, there's lots of other things that are going on that are contributing to it. And that's why if that happens, instead of just trying to, you know, as the sergeant of arms, do everything there, you really got to reach out to your advisory board and make sure that they're involved in trying to help out. You know, when I worked for nationals, there were individuals that, although it was, you know, kind of hypocritical of me back then, but, you know, at least working on getting them the resources from the university that they need. But at the end of the day, there is a solution, right? They are able to get better.
No, thank you for that response. Well, it looks like we have run up at the end of our time here, actually a couple minutes over, so I'm being told I need to wrap things up here. But Britt, once again, thank you so much for bringing that message today to our fraternity. Once again, I think those are two extremely timely topics with the career search and the mental health and the addictions. They're very, very timely right now. So we appreciate your expertise and your personal story and sharing with it. And I hope our brothers, you feel more equipped now to go out there and to better handle the world you're living in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for everybody for joining and listening. And anybody ever has any questions or anything, you can always get in touch with me through the National Fraternity as well.
Absolutely. That's a great point, Britt. If anyone does have any questions or wants to go more deeper into this, Tariq and our consultants on staff, they're prepared to help field some of those questions. And we do have the staff member, Kim Novak, who's a specialist in the health and safety realm as well, too. So we definitely are wanting to provide you with the resources necessary to help you out with these areas. So.
Awesome. And last but not least, if you're looking for a job, check out srg-us.com. If I can help you out, I'd love to hire just a bunch of pikes. So bring it on.
That's awesome. Thanks, Britt.
Right.
you might get a few more of those.
Hey, all right. We got jobs all over the country.
Perfect. Well, excellent. Well, everyone, thank you so much. Please, after the session, there is a short evaluation. Please fill that out. We hope you enjoyed this and the rest of the conference. I hope everyone has a good rest of the evening and a wonderful weekend. And thank you once again, Britt.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.